officially call the meeting to order. In attendance this evening, we have myself, Peter Bigelow, Susan Lobo, Jane Matthews, and Emmanuel is with us. We have representing the engineers is Matt Emerson, and we have our new property manager, Crystal, is with us this evening. Crystal started with us earlier in the week, and she's going to take over the management of the Heights, and then we'll figure out how the roles are all going to be adjusted when we bring the Royal online. First item of business, we have minutes for the meetings of October, November, and January.
We're on video.
Okay. Yes, we are on video.
I will wait, a motion to waive reading, but a motion to vote on them individually, since not all of us were at each meeting.
Thank you.
I will do something better than that. Hearing no objection, I will accept the minutes for the meeting of October 29th. Hearing none, the minutes are accepted. Hearing no objection, I will accept the minutes of November 2019. Hearing no objections, the minutes are accepted. Hearing no objections, I will accept the minutes of January of 2020. Hearing no objection, the minutes are accepted. What that is a Robert's Rules mechanism for accepting minutes where we have varying attendance, so we don't have to figure out who says aye, who abstains, who does everything. We accept without objection. And Crystal, just in case, nobody knows, I am one of those Nazi cuckoo people who have actually read Robert's Rules of Order.
I'm sorry.
Next item on the agenda, Crystal, you're on. Property manager's report. What do you got for Matt? What do you got?
We'll work together on this month.
Go for it.
It'll be Crystal's first month here. We don't have much to report. Just want to give some updates that are not listed under old business here in regards to the Royal. We are still vetting through and very close to the end of the responses for the OTHH wait list for folks who may be interested in living at the Royal. We expect that will yield about 8 to 12 households. We're not sure if they're going to income qualify, but we will get to that after the next step. Just the timing, just so everyone's aware, March 16th or shortly thereafter, we plan to open up the Royals wait list. Meaning we'll start advertising. We'll do an email blast, anybody who's inquired, and of course we'll inform people who are on the wait list. And people will apply. We're going to accept 200 applications. You have to remember that.
We should cover that later. We had a discussion last meeting, and I think we need to get you up to speed on some of the thoughts and concerns. But
Sure. So generally?
So just want to kick that, so when we discuss the wait list.
It is an item on the agenda, and we want to discuss it as a separate agenda. A separate item on the agenda.
Well, I don't have too much to report here.
Okay.
It's all right, you're doing fine. No problem, you're doing good.
Yeah, I don't have too much anything other to report here at high school. It's not on the agenda, so I think.
Nothing else going on that we should be aware of? Everybody's in pretty good shape?
I have
A
a
couple open items put on the agenda.
couple of questions. I'm not sure where they fit in, so I'll throw them out now. Looking at the financials, which is a whole separate thing, somewhere we should have sort of have an update on how long appliances and things like that are expected to last at the Heights. I see that we've had to replace some, and just so we're kind of up to speed as to on an ongoing basis, you replace things every X number of years typically. Some will be a little bit, sooner, some will last longer. And it's more of a, so we understand looking at the financials, what's extraordinary versus what would be considered a routine maintenance type item. Obviously the facility's been up for a few years now, and so we're going to start seeing things that when it's brand new, we don't see.
So we go update now?
If we can, it'd be great. Just as I say, going through, as I saw a few line items where I'm going, okay, we're entering a new phase, if you will.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that we're spending a little too much money on appliances. Yeah. What it comes down to is, you do all the appliances in your home. Your fridge should last 10, 15 years. A dishwasher should last that. And we're having some use issues here. Over jamming we've had some issues with the appliances themselves, and we found them to be some use issues that we're trying try to work through. But Fawn, Crystal, and Joe have been working hard to understand when we're going to be fixing versus replacing. But we have noticed on the appliances that were here that we have had to fix too many too soon. And we're trying to figure out why that is. And unfortunately, there's a situation where when you have a refrigerator that is 6, 7 years old, it comes to that question mark, do you bring in the appliance repair guy or do you just replace it?
Right.
Certainly with something like a microwave, a dishwasher, lower expense, you try to fix it first. Not a refrigerator, because that's a more expensive, $1,500 around.
Right.
And we've been successful in that model so far of trying to address the appliance issues. But we've had a number of user type issues that we've noticed along the way. You gotta push aside like washers and dryers, those are rented and handled by a different, they're not
Okay.
run through the property. So what we're looking at basically at this point is we're saying if a microwave goes down, we're just gonna replace. We're not gonna spend $200 to send someone down. If it's a dishwasher, if it's the same type of problem we've been having, we're just going to replace it. If it's a refrigerator, we're gonna try to fix it and keep it for its life length, which is around 15 years.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't be surprised if the life for appliances today isn't what it was a few years ago.
Certainly is not.
Everything is not made quite the way it was. And the other side is if there is concern that some tenants are not taking care of their appliances, maybe we need to look at, is there something we can do policy-wise or something just to, we're not taking the full brunt of if it's truly abuse versus it's a wear and tear item and, things break and you have to fix them, so.
We were actually just talking about that before this meeting, quite a lot. That's why I was prepared to speak on it without knowing that. Because it's certainly a concern that we share of making sure that we educate the resident how to utilize their appliances. They're doing something wrong, they're putting too much stuff in the freezers, so it's causing the freezer burn and they can't close it. Just tenant education there, resident education there. That seems to be the crux of the issues there, so we're working our way through that.
Right. Okay. That was my thing.
Yeah.
Members,
Me too.
Do we have a written policy in regard to, or is there language in the lease that deals with how we handle these different situations?
There's language in the lease in regards to how you take care of the unit beyond normal wear and tear. But it becomes a situation where, unless you see that over and over and over again, you just kind of solve the problem, you try to educate, and you try to, it's just very circumstance where.
The only reason I'm asking the question is because I want to know that we have some written documentation that says if this happens, this is the reaction. If this happens, this is the reaction. So that if we react these ways, we're not being called on the carpet to say we're being arbitrary in the way we're reacting to these things.
This would also be a great newsletter item just for people to remember the basics of,
Yeah, I'm working on it.
don't
Yeah,
overstuff
to
something,
remind people.
close the doors to the refrigerator, things like that, which they may, need to remind them occasionally.
Like a little maintenance corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Anything else on the heights? Moving right along, it's fortunate that Mr. McClutchy has joined us at this time because it is now time to talk about the Royal and what the current status is and what's going on.
Everything is still moving along pretty well over there. Construction is in full swing. We're about 65% complete at this point. Working on the interior of the building. Moving up to the second floor next week. And still the anticipated timeline for everything is still looking at like a July-ish date. And we'll start sending out, notices fairly soon about some of those updates, probably within the next 30 days or so.
Yes.
So everyone can have a little bit more heads up as to what's going on, what the timeline looks like, and they can make, appropriate preparations for that.
Okay.
It looks great.
Yeah, it does really good.
Okay, I have gotten nothing but positive
Yeah,
comments
me too.
from people who drive by.
Good to hear.
and people are very pleased with the progress.
I will pass it along
And
to the people that are doing the work.
And our compliments to the contractors, because I've also gotten comments from residents in the area,
Me too, yeah.
and they have all
Yeah,
said
I told you, yeah.
that unless you drive by there, if you are on the back streets behind, you really have no way of knowing there's a construction project going on,
Yeah.
which apparently has not always been the case with some of the construction projects that are going on the post road. So that's our compliments to the contractors. They're doing a good job.
Definitely pass it along, good information.
Next item, and it's on the agenda, we talked last time briefly about the wait list. Let me give a brief recap so everybody's up to date on where we're at. We have a certain number of tenants who were residents at Old Town Hall houses who will be coming back when the construction is complete. That's cast in concrete. There's nothing to discuss. There's no vague get in, period. As soon as we're ready, we'll notify you. We'll start the process of getting movers to get you packed up where you are and get you moved over to the new location. Next question. We have a list of people who were on the waiting list for Old Town Hall houses. There were
39 people, I think, right? Is that what?
39 or 29, but 9, I remember that.
Yeah.
29 people on
It was
the list.
29, yes.
What we asked for was for Imagineers to start going down that list to find out of those people how many were still interested in remaining on that list.
And is that the 8 to 12 that you were talking about?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right.
So it's the final, well, not the final one, but it's been vetted, and the current list is now 8 to 12 people who are interested and appear that they will meet the criteria.
8 with 4 people that were given just a little extra time to figure out their circumstances.
Okay. So the next part of this whole formula, we'll accept applications up to 200. And then we will sort out who's qualified for what, because we have several different silos, we call them here at the Heights. We do the same thing there. Whether they're 25% AMI, 50% AMI, 60% AMI, they determine what their income level allows them to qualify for within the building. And the thought was, so you pick a certain number of people and you put them into the building, and then you take the rest of the people and you put them on a waiting list. Now, if we accept, we open up for these applications and we get all these applications, the expectation, based on what happened here, is that within 2 days, we'll have 200 applications. I mean, it's hard to imagine for the type of housing we're building that this is going to take a very long time. It's not. So we expect to have the requisite number. Well, you can't, normally what you do on these waiting listings is you get put on the waiting list in the same order in which your application is received. Well, that works fine on a go-forward basis farther down the road. But to start out, that doesn't work at all, because all these applications are coming at the same time. So what we do is what we did here at the Heights is we have a lottery. We put all the names in a hat, figuratively, it's all done electronically, and we pull the names out, and that is the order in which they are considered to become a tenant for the Royal. We put them in order and then put them into the appropriate silos. So if you are number 10 on the list for the lottery, but of the people, you are the first one that meets the 60% AMI criteria, you become number 1 in that silo. But we try to maintain the order in which they were originally selected in the lottery. But the conversation centered around what do we do with the existing people on the waiting list. And the thought was to give them, because they were on the waiting list, to give them a leg up on any new residents. We would put their name in the lottery twice, so they would have a higher perspective of getting one of the top slots at the Royal. Having gotten that far in the conversation, we determined that our best approach would be to get Imagineers to cull that list, find out of the names we had, how many in fact were viable, and then make a decision based on that number, whether or not that's how we wanted to move forward, or whether we wanted to consider some other mechanism.
And so, understanding that, the game plan at that level, my concern is we're in a very unique situation, and that is we have a lot of people, which are now down to 8 to 12, who have been on a list for a long time, a list that we stopped taking tenants because we knew the building was coming down, who are at a stage in life where, they, if you will, paid their dues being on the list. And since the number seems to be small, I would think that we might consider treating them like they were incumbents. We're still going to have a lot of openings, and then start the new list that way. But we've got, if it's only 8 or 10 people, and we're bringing back, if I'm not mistaken, 17?
16 was the number I
It's
had.
15. And then we're bringing back
I thought we had 16 coming back.
16.
I thought.
We're
We
16.
thought 15, but then we picked up an extra.
Yes,
Wasn't
it
it?
says 16.
And I just think that if we've been on the list for a long time, it's a senior facility, I just think that we should take care of the people who, in good faith, wanted to live in this facility for a lot of years, and then once we have taken care of these existing people, the people who are on the existing list, open things up, go through a lottery for all new applicants coming through. It may be 8, it may be 12, but it's certainly not 100 that are on the existing list.
Let me make one further comment before I open this to general discussion. I can sit here and comfortably tell each and every one of you, no matter how we decide to handle this, we will get it wrong. Okay? I'm not making this up. There will be people who will understand our decision, they will understand the discussion we had to arrive at that decision, and if they're on one side of the issue or the other, they will be convinced we got it wrong. So be prepared for that. I tend to agree with Peter, for what it's worth, that the number is small enough. If we bring back 16 existing residents and pick a middle-of-the-road number, we add another 10 from the existing list who qualify, because we still have to make sure these people qualify. That gives us 26 units. There are 55 units in the facility. That still, if my math is correct, still leaves us with 29 units to be filled, which is more than the original capacity of Old Town Hall houses, and I am comfortable with that. But I am now prepared to hear discussion from anybody who wants to chime in.
One question, is there any state law that dictates how this should be done, that
It would be a federal, for housing law, and I think we should consult council to ensure there's no issue there, but I'd just like to point one very important thing out, and that is, let's just say it's 8 to 12 or 10 households. At the very least, I think we should let them know the rental rate structure of this facility versus OTHH, because I think that might zero this down to even less.
Matt, I'm saying that if we make this decision, the number isn't going to get larger. It's going to get smaller. As we talk to them about what the rental structure is,
Gather their income
as we
information.
gather their income information, that number is not going to get larger. It's only going to get smaller.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so, we'd be
Make it
looking
even more
at,
feasible for them.
it's looking at a smaller population to add to the existing.
And the remaining households who are looking for a lower income skewed household, which is being set aside for the returning residents, that would be getting back on the wait list again situation.
Yeah.
But if they say, oh, that works for me, then the decisions, if it's kosher or acceptable legally, which I don't see why it wouldn't, because they have it on the waiting list. I just want to verify that. Is it would make it a little more simple to say, these 6 folks are interested, they qualify.
Yeah, I like, oh, sorry. Susan.
That's okay, I completely agree. I would have agreed if it was still, if every member who had been on the wait, if every potential resident who was on the wait list was still interested and qualified. I just agree with everything Peter said. They were waiting
Just
this long.
this was whittled down just based off of folks saying, I'm
No, I
happy right
understand,
here."
I
Yeah.
understand. I'm saying that even if everyone on the wait list didn't remove themselves from it from your phone call, your inquiry about interest, I still would support this, because I feel like if you've been waiting and your hope was that at some point you would be called for an apartment, that to say, well, now we've built something new and you no longer are on the
Yeah.
wait list
And
is
your neighbors
not.
gone last.
Exactly, I
And actually, they all
just
would have
don't,
been called had we not replaced the old facility, because the numbers that
Right.
would have down.
That's
At
correct.
this point, they would have been housed
I
there.
just,
correct.
I completely agree.
Because we had 6, 7 vacancies that we chose not to fill.
Then,
That was a financial decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great idea. I think it's fair, it's equitable, it's simple, rather than, extra points for somebody, and, I like it. I think,
Emmanuel?
I would agree.
Anybody who doesn't agree that's the appropriate approach? Comments?
I'm
Yes.
thrilled to hear this. I'm Ally Erickson, I'm the Director of Darien Human Services, and on behalf of many of the people on the wait list, this is why I came to this meeting, because I think they were very upset at the idea that they were not going to go in the hierarchy of the list, which is what they kind of expected the way it used to be before the whole redevelopment. So I hope this goes forward.
Okay, having said that, what I would propose, the commission is amenable. We'll let Matt check with council. We'll find out what the legalities are. If it is perfectly legal and
So there's a
acceptable.
question over here.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I've been on the old waiting list.
Right.
Yeah, and I did apply. I did go there, but it was very dangerous, very hard, go up the stairs and down. I have a cane, but it was just the idea that we all thought that we were going to go forward when the new building was built to be able to get in there.
Well, again,
We're going to,
that's what we're trying to do. The first proposal was you would be given an advantage by putting your name in the lottery twice. We looked at that and said, wait a minute, we got people who've been on this waiting list for quite some time. And before we start making judgments, let's see how many really are still interested in coming. Again, as we just mentioned, if we had done nothing, there would have been 6 people off that waiting list who would have been already residents, because we allowed apartments to go vacant for financial reasons. It didn't make any sense to put somebody in knowing 2 months later we were going to move them out. So, those people, if we had done nothing, would have been in an apartment. So it seems to us it is a better approach to allow the people who want to be resident and still qualified to be a resident to get residency. And then set the waiting list up for really new people. So what I would propose is that we go away from here tonight with the understanding that if it is legal, we will do that. If the legal department gives us some reason to say it's not legal, then we will talk it over one more time. And the only other option we would have is to make a decision on how many times the existing people get into the lottery. We started with 2. We might say we'll give them 4 entries into the lottery in an effort to make it more fair to the people who are on the waiting list.
if I add one thing, because we've got a timeline issue, 3/16 is when you want to open up the list and so on. If before the next meeting, when you get the answers, you let the commissioners know.
Shoot me an email and we'll get move on to this decision as quickly as we can.
I can't think of any.
I can't either, but I'm not a lawyer.
We want to be able to give a definitive answer to everyone as soon as possible so that
Yeah.
everyone can be.
I understand.
The other thing to ask legal is this issue of how many entries there is in the lottery. Are we doing anything that's in the way?
We covered that before with here, but we'll double check again.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're covering all the bases, okay? Any other questions or comments? Everybody satisfied we've covered that subject? Moving right along. Old business. The lighting issue. We've had some questions about lights. Eversource is on the case. We're getting things fixed.
I mean, Eversource has a ticket open, all light bulbs are Lumen 8500 photocell on dusk to midnight. They own the lights, they control the lights. There's an issue with the light that we're working on, there's been multiple issues with multiple lights. But there's a particular issue that we're working on, and it's a ticket. We cannot do anything other than wait for them to come here. So we put it in, I'd say, 4 weeks ago. I think it was 4 weeks
Is
ago.
this for 15B?
Yeah.
I believe they came out last Friday.
Oh.
So that is something that I plan to drive by today to see.
Okay.
Did they have options? I mean, we have dusk to dawn and so on, but did they have options where half the lights will be dusk to dawn and the other half would be, we'll shut off at an arbitrary time or something, just to dim the brightness at times when people are sleeping? So
There
there's,
wasn't a mix option in there.
okay, it was a binary this or that.
Yeah, and the town has quickly hinted at it as well.
I remember that.
Okay.
So it's dusk to dawn is when the
So
lights.
people here should know that because we had hoped there might be some compromise solution where some of the lights could be going off earlier, so it wasn't quite as bright.
Yeah, because they used to go off at midnight. The lights would come on at dusk and go off at midnight.
Yeah,
And
that's
now-
before they changed the amount of photos, so,
Okay.
And they're probably LEDs now, I presume, which are even brighter, even
I
though
think
they're.
they were original LEDs, but
Yeah, but again, it's not controlled by wattage anymore, it's by lumens. So you can replace an incandescent bulb with an LED and get the same light.
Yeah.
Typically, LEDs tend to look brighter because they glow in a different color spectrum.
I swapped out a whole plant, we had to go back, cut it back, because, we're like, oh my God.
So that's as under control as we have the capability of making it. We're not saying, this is not a slam dunk, nobody's sitting here saying it's all solved, it's not. But we put the necessary call tickets into Eversource, and we'll get them to work on it. And those of you who are going to become residents at the Royal, put this in the back of your mind, because we're going to face exactly the same problem when we get over to the Royal. We'll have Eversource maintaining the lights, and all we can do is put in a call ticket.
yes.
So I'm sorry, Todd,
Yes, we're gonna do the same program.
Todd, you were saying so part of the issue is Eversource, which is, are they getting out here to do what you need them to do with respect to the lights? But you said something about the town also has a point of view on,
They did here, yes, many years ago, which
Oh.
they don't.
oh, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
This is also something that would go in newsletters, so people are aware of what has transpired and what Eversource has said.
Yeah,
and so on.
I know here to add.
what to do if they have a concern.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is the cars going the wrong way on Long Street.
Okay, is this still going on?
Oh,
Yes.
it's,
Never.
and again, we've looked at this, there is a camera in range that gives a picture of what's going on, but it's not focused enough and we can't expand it enough to actually read a license plate number.
And it's the camera that's here, correct, outside of this door is the one that we can point?
Isn't there another one on this side too? That one's certainly the one that we have focused in that direction.
Yeah.
It's the same problem as the police have said to us, unless you get like a camera on that tree right there. This is gonna be a neighborhood watch thing, where someone who's seen it needs to tell us what car it is.
That's good.
It's very clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 14, 13. There's the only folks that are gonna try to do this, right? Everybody else can go around that way.
There's a lot of children that play in that area right there where the cars are going the wrong way, so it'd be very
Well,
devastating if something happened to my kid, it's gonna be a problem.
It's a safety issue.
First of all,
It's still just one door.
And it's also probably an Uber driver, or a Grubhub, or that kind of
Right.
thing. So,
We've had this problem with some, oh no, I guess the delivery drivers, it was more of an issue of signs, right, where they.
Right.
They were going to the wrong buildings. We took care of the signs.
let me make a comment. I appreciate that there are children that play there. I appreciate the residents who walk there, kids who ride there. I get it all, I really do. Putting all of that aside, it's wrong,
Right.
period. End of story.
wrong way on one.
It's wrong. And if you do it, and we catch you doing it, it is a violation of one of the clauses in your lease.
Yes.
And we're going to call you on it. So the suggestion is, if you live in this facility, tell your neighbors, we're serious about this. We catch you, there are penalties. I understand, believe me, I understand all the safety issues, I understand all of those things. But number one on my list, it's wrong. And if you do things that are wrong, there are penalties. don't do
I think that because this has been going on for such an extremely long time, and I think, we have lots of signs out there that say, wrong way, right way, and all that. I think at least temporarily, we need to come up with some kind of solution, whether it's the expense of a camera that is clearly pointed at that driveway so that people can clearly see that it is a camera, or it is a reverse speed bump, or something that, this is 2 years, 3 years we're talking about this. And one of the comments I hear from the residents is that, yes, Matt, I think you're right, we would like the residents to come forward and say, I saw Betty Smith, and I know Betty Smith that I know of.
We don't know Betty Smith, just tell us the car, we'll make them out, we'll find a reason.
But the problem that I hear from the residents is, I don't want to report my neighbor, I don't know who it is, I don't want to.
Do it anonymously.
Right, I hear you, I hear you, and I think we've just been down this road so many times.
Well, no one's reporting it to us, nobody has ever, so that's the problem we have.
it. Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. We know it happens. We know it's going on. We don't get we get
Actually, that's not true. There was one car that was reported 3 years ago. We talked to them and everything again.
Yeah.
We Cherokee.
Yeah,
Other than that, nothing.
How often?
So,
How often
no,
does
wait,
public-
so help me understand, if no one's reporting it, how do we know it's happening? Like what?
This meeting is when I hear about it.
well, we
If
had
no one is
residents,
saying that cars are going the wrong
Yeah.
way, then
We've had
how
residents-
is this a problem?
we've had residents in these meetings,
Residents come and say.
say, it's a problem.
Who was it?
It's a problem.
Who did it? When did they do it? Oh, I don't want to get involved.
Right, right.
But you also said the camera can't make out the license plate, so
You
you
can
can
see the
see that
plate.
the car is going.
They go fast, very fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess a lot of the problem
I
are
have-
people like,
So many-
Ubers and Grubhubs
Yeah, right.
and through
People who don't live
and
here.
they just wanna get checked out to get the next delivery time.
Yes,
Yeah. I live in the front where
excuse
you're,
me.
I come in the front. I live in the front and Dot lives next to me. As you come into the entrance,
Yeah.
there are so many things that you
Coming
see.
off on Road Avenue,
They
they
will come-
speed.
They'll come in and some people just come in, park their car, open their trunks, get things out of it, jump back in,
Yeah.
and they go out that way. It's not our residents, some of them.
I understand that. If you
You
see.
know, but I do.
You
See,
can't see the plates.
If
yeah,
you-
see, they're in
We're
and then
not
they're
young.
out and they go out. But
If you
the
see a
others-
car going the wrong way, call the office, give us a color of the car, any information you have. We'll follow up on it.
Take a picture of your
They
cell
all-
phone.
Very hard.
But then the other cars that leave there too, they go in and they go
I
out
understand.
and they go fast.
How often does this happen?
Why?
Is this an everyday occurrence?
It's out, I mean, it's less than it
There's
was.
them all over, but
Yeah.
My
could there
suggestion,
be a bigger sign? Could there be?
No, we're not gonna put any more signs up. We put enough signs up these are people who are not paying attention to signs. They're doing something wrong. They know they're doing something wrong. They're doing it anyway
my
because we're not catching them.
My suggestion might be a straightforward and simple thing, is, and I think the office has done this before, is send a letter to what we know is primarily the problem, which is buildings 1 through 4. Send a letter to the residents, appropriately worded, saying, we are aware of, people going the wrong way. Please be reminded it is a violation of your lease. And also, please, if you see someone, we're trying to address it, we're trying to do everything we possibly can. However, if, you as the residents don't come forward in a way, then, we all need to work together, in other words. Let's all work together.
We will do that. And we also are dealing with certain residents of building 4
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us where our people helping us are. Like, they're over here. Just see if we can figure out who it is. The problem is if it's not our residents, then we're not going to figure that out.
Yeah.
So that we gotta do what we're doing.
Well,
One other
if it turns
suggestion.
out that it's not residents, then I think we have to look at one of the suggestions that Jane had, which was a reverse speed bump. Because if we can't resolve the issue ourselves by making people aware that it's a problem and it could lead to them losing their lease, and it's just people who are coming on the property to deliver things or to visit friends or whatever, then we
It's
have
in the
to,
trunk.
we have to, or throw something out the trunk, we have
It's
to
a
put
parking lot,
something
and as
in.
far as they're concerned, it's a public
prohibits
parking
them
lot.
from
They pull in,
using
they
the
park, they
property.
do whatever they gotta do, they get back in the car and they go out.
And then they go out the wrong way.
Wrong, they got the wrong way, right.
I'm on record, I have said this before, I'll say it again, if it were up to me alone, if there were no other requirements, I'd put one of those tracks they put at the
Yeah.
rental car agencies. You go the wrong way, you're gonna lose that set of tires.
Well, even
I'm not gonna shed one tear.
put that down for a week.
Well,
I have one other comment that I will investigate and get back to Matt, and we'll talk about it to see whether it makes any sense. We have several areas right in this neighborhood that are manned by a school crossing guard. The school crossing guards get paid to do that, and they go in the morning when the schools go to session, and they go back again in the afternoon. It would be worth our while to find out what they get paid per hour, and whether or not we could contact one or two of them to spend the time in between the morning session and the afternoon session on not every day, but on random days, to just park out there and act as our on-site eyes. And if it's not outrageously expensive, I'm of the opinion that once we clamp down on this, it won't persist for long, but there have to be
If
consequences.
it's residents, I agree, if it's someone
That's right.
coming in to pop their trunk and get something out.
Or to deliver
Well,
something.
you know, but again, if we do something about it,
Yeah, I agree with you.
and there's a consequence to it, then it's nothing for us to get it in the paper that we've done something, this is what happened, and this is how we resolved the problem, and make it very clear it was not a problem with the heights, it was a problem from people who do not belong here, coming here and not obeying the rules, and we dealt with it.
Loop around.
So, we'll,
I like the idea of reverse speed bump, or,
hopefully,
you know, a magnet, a strip, you know, that tears up the tires. That'd be
sacrifice those tires in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay.
It only takes 1 week and we can
I
solve it.
I want everybody to understand, we're aware of the problem, we're not ignoring it, we're working on it, we're trying to find a viable solution.
See anything, let us know.
Yeah.
Then we can get the plate numbers.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along. So we talked about the lights, we talked about that, that's it for old business. Anybody else got anything under old business that I'm not aware of? New business, who's got something new and exciting for us to talk about tonight? Oh, this is an exciting group, I'm here to tell you. Nothing. You know, in this business, no business is good business. Okay? Residents Association, the Heights. Anybody got anything for us, other than what we've already talked about?
I think you mentioned at the last meeting that this meeting, you would let us know more about the resident commissioner position.
We will do that. We now have information which we will discuss during our executive session, and when we are prepared to make the public announcement, we will do that.
Thank you.
Old Town, or the Royal, any questions, issues? No? We're moving along.
Wait,
Yes.
I'm sorry, one more question back.
Yeah, go
Kind of
ahead.
related to waitlist. Just out of curiosity, when you do the lottery for the up to 200 applications, is that open to the public so that we are able to witness what's happening? It happened at Pemberton, Leroy West. They actually had members of the Human Service Commission, literally, I know you said it's electronic, so it's different, but picking the names out of the hat.
I say, I don't know how we would do it.
Yeah, it's not electronic, if someone wanted to come to Hartford and view it, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, the problem is we will not do it here, we'll do it up at the offices of the
Yeah,
Hartford.
it's an automatic lottery through a computer system, but, if someone wants to go, just let us know.
Al, you want us to let you know when it happens?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Because I think that we have inquiries pretty much daily.
Make a note, give her a couple days heads up when we're getting ready to do it, and then they can decide whether to send somebody up or not. We're not purposely trying to do this some way that people don't know what's going on. We want it to be as open as we can.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, in that case, I will take a motion for adjournment to move into executive session for discussion of contractual and personal issues. And we will not be coming out of executive session to vote on anything in public session. So moved, there, second. All in favor? Aye. Ladies